Assalamu alaikum. These slides are about parking studies and design of parking facilities. So they are basically from different chapters and I have combined them together in these slides. So let us start with that. Now why parking facilities are important? Because it is the major uh, residing place for your vehicle. Within the 24 hours of the day, most of the time of the vehicle is spent in the parking areas, whether it's in your house or in your destination. So that's why planning for parking is important, because this is where you will be keeping your vehicle for most of the time. Now parking places become a bigger problem in areas which have business and commercial land uses. For example, diplomatic area in Bahrain, and there are other areas in Manama and Muharrak that you can find which have parking problems. Why? Because they are commercial and business areas, so there's a lot of demand for the vehicles which are coming to that area. Another important use of parking area is with the transit stations. Transit stations are basically metro stations or these railway stations, and since these transit stations are serving so many people, so sometimes they are used as park and ride facilities. So you can come from your house in your own vehicle, you can leave your vehicle on the transit station, and then you take the bus or the train from that station and go to your destination. So you don't have to worry about the parking in your destination, and then you don't have to worry about walking to the station as well, because you are using your own vehicle. So when you come back in the evening, you take your vehicle and then you go back to your house. So it is very important to do parking studies so that we can know the exact demand of parking in a particular area, and according to that we can supply the parking facilities as well. And we have to cater for the current demand as well as the projection for the future as well. There are two types of parking facilities: on street parking and off street parking. On street doesn't mean in the middle of the street, on street means on the side of the street, and off street means that it is somewhere separate, and it has some separation from the road or the street. On a street, it's just beside the street without any separation. On street parking facilities are also known as curb parking facilities. So curb is the block or the structure by which you make the sidewalk or the end of the parking space. So that's why we call them curb facilities as well. Sometimes it is on one side of the parking street, sometimes it is on both sides of the street. These on-street parking facilities can be restricted by cost or time as well. So they are only allowed for some period of time. For example, in the peak hours, since there's too much traffic on the street, so you may not allow parking on the side, because it will disturb the flow on the street as well. And this thing has been adopted in other countries like Saudi Arabia, and some European countries also adopt this methodology, where they restrict the timing for which the parking is allowed. And they can be restricted by cost as well. So if you have to park, then you need to pay. So we have many paid parking areas in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and lots of other countries. Uh, some parking facilities can be restricted according to their purpose as well. The most common example is the parking reserved for handicapped. Okay, some parking facilities are used as bus stops. You have seen bus stops on the sides of the road, and some of them are used as loading bays, meaning they are outside a mall or outside the storage facility of a mall, and they are mainly used by the vehicles which bring the goods and products to these stores and malls. So they are used as loading bays. So they are only for the vehicles which are bringing these products to them. Then we have off-street parking facilities. They can be owned privately or publicly. So we have government-owned parking areas which are separated from the street, and private parking areas are very common, like we have within the university, you will have within your houses and so on. So these are all privately owned parking areas. They can include surface lots or garages. Surface lots are bigger parking areas, so they hold more vehicles, they have more space, and they are open. Open in the sense that they are not covered. On the other hand, garages are smaller, so the parking space which you have in your house for one or two vehicles is normally called as a garage. So it is smaller and it is usually covered. Then it can be self parking or attendant parking facility, meaning that self parking means that you come inside and you park your own vehicle. Attendant parking is something what they also call as valet parking. Okay, you will see them in hotels, big hotels. They provide these services outside their hotels. That a person will come, he will take your keys, and he will take your car somewhere, and hopefully he will return it back when you need it. So this is attendant or valet parking, and it is provided by big hospitals and big hotels and so on. Then these are few parking terminologies which we must understand if we have to go through the data which we collect during parking studies. So the first thing is space hour. Space hour is 1 unit of parking. Okay, when you measure parking demand or parking supply, it is measured in terms of space hour, and it is defined as the utilization of one parking space for 1 hour. So if one parking space is utilized for 1 hour, this is equal to one space hour. If two parking spaces are utilized for 1 hour each, then it will become two space hours, right? One for each space, and so on. Then parking volume is the number of vehicles that come to your parking area in a given time period, and usually it is a complete day or at least the working hours of the day. Then we have parking accumulation. This is the number of vehicles that are accumulated in the parking area for a specific time. So this is not for a complete time period like parking volume. Parking volume is for the complete time period. Okay, so you have a start point and an end point for parking volume in terms of time. But parking accumulation is one time. Okay, so you go to any parking area now and you count the number of vehicles, it will be called as parking accumulation. But if you count the total number of vehicles which entered this parking area in the whole day, that will become parking volume. Then so you can collect parking accumulation for different time periods, and then you can plot them. So on the x-axis you will have time, on the y-axis you will have accumulation of vehicles. So when you plot it, it will be in any shape of a curve, and if you calculate the area under the accumulation curve, it will be called as a parking load. Okay, so parking load is basically the area under the parking accumulation curve. So basically what does a parking load give? It gives you the number of space hours used in a specific time period, because on the y-axis you have number of spaces occupied, on the x-axis you have hours. So when you take the area, you are multiplying them, right? So space hours, and obviously there will be a starting point of the curve and the end point of the curve. So the number of space hours used between or for a specific time period will be termed as parking load, and it can be calculated as taking the area under the accumulation curve between any two time intervals. Then we have parking duration. Parking duration is the number of hours for which a space is used by a parking vehicle. Okay, and a space in your book is also termed as a parking bay. So a parking bay or a parking space means the same thing. Then if you can calculate the duration for each vehicle, then you can calculate the average duration for all vehicles as well, because each vehicle will have its own duration. Okay, so one vehicle is parked for 2 hours, the other one is parked for 3 hours. So you take all these numbers, you take their average, it will give you average duration of all vehicles in this parking area. So on average, how much time a vehicle is spending in that parking area, that will be the average parking duration. Then we have parking turnover, is the rate of use of a parking space, okay, during the complete time period. How many vehicles use one space? So in the whole day, on average, one parking space is used by how many vehicles? This is what we call as parking turnover rate. So when you are doing a parking study, we follow this methodology. First of all, we collect inventory of the parking facilities. Mean you find out what do we have existing supply. Then you collect data about parking accumulation, turnover, and parking duration. Then you can identify for this parking area what are the parking generators. Okay, parking generators are the facilities which are for which people are coming to that area. Okay, so they must be a nearby mall or a educational area or office building or something like that, because of which people are coming to that area and they have to park in your parking facility. So that mall or that building will be called as a parking generator. Then you collect information about parking demand, okay, and you have to collect it from people. So let us discuss about all these things one by one. So inventory includes many things about the existing parking facilities. First of all, you have to find out the number of parking spaces, okay, and what type of parking spaces you have. Are they on street parking, off street parking, okay, and they are types according to their geometry as well. Okay, we will discuss them later on. So first of all, find out number of parking spaces and the type of parking spaces. Then you find out if there is any duration limit for how long you can utilize these parking spaces. Okay, so maybe one parking space is, or there are some parking spaces which are inside a particular building, and that building is only open for let's say 12 hours of the day. So those parking spaces are only available for 12 hours. Okay, and like I said, there may be some parking spaces which are outside, but they are restricted because of the operation of the street. Then what type of ownership is there for the parking spaces? Are they government parking or private parking? Is there any fees for the parking spaces, and if there is any fees, then how the fees is collected? uh, then is there any restriction to the use of parking spaces? For example, some parking spaces may be for handicapped people, some parking spaces are for everybody, some parking spaces are for the clients of a specific mall, okay, the customers of a specific company. Okay, so find out these restrictions. There may be other restrictions like type of vehicles that can park in an area. For example, you will see parking areas for taxis. They are very common near airports. Okay, some parking spaces may be for buses and trucks. Okay, then the degree of permanency. Okay, sometimes parking spaces are created because of a specific event or because of a specific uh, activity which is going on in that area. For example, you have some construction work going on, and because of that construction work, the mixer and the crane is being used in that area. So you may have to reserve some space temporarily for parking these heavy vehicles, because they may not be able to go and come back on daily basis. Then event can be like we have events for National Day, we have events for Formula One. So in those events, because of those events, the parking demand is very high in some specific areas or for some specific facility. So you may allot some extra temporary parking spaces for these events around these facilities. So I talked about accumulation, parking accumulation and parking accumulation curve. So you can see it here. Okay, so accumulation is the number of vehicles occupying a parking area at a specific time. So you can see at every specific time, this is the time of the day, we have a value for accumulation, and this is made as a curve. Okay, so you plot the number of vehicles on the y-axis and the time on the x-axis, and then you join all the points, you get the accumulation curve. And that the time period for the accumulation curve will depend upon uh, how long you did the study, and usually it covers the working hours of the day. So you can see it early morning to midnight maybe, but you can make it shorter, it's not fixed. And if you take the area under the accumulation curve, this area, you will get the parking load, the use of the facility between these two hours, in space hours, the use of the facility in this much time period in terms of space hours. Then this is the equation for turnover rate. So uh, there are things you collect during parking study. Okay, so you have to collect turnover rate and duration as well. So uh, you find out how many vehicles have parked in your area in the whole day, and then you divide it with the number of spaces that are available in your parking area. So this will give you parking turnover rate. Okay, and then around the area you identify the parking generators. As I said, they can be shopping centers, they can be transit terminals like metro stations or so, and you can locate them on a map. You can locate your parking area in the map, and you can see what are the commonly used facilities around this area. Then for collecting data about parking demand, you have to do the interview of the drivers. Okay, why? Because there may be uh, uh, some data about the driver which may not be visible in the parking area by looking at the vehicle. For example, you go to the parking area, look at the vehicle, you don't know why the driver has come to this area. Why is he parking in this particular space? Why is he coming at this time? Why not at some other time? Okay, so for finding out these things, you may have to do an interview study. Okay, so the interview study usually is done in the working hours. Okay, when the drivers usually come to that parking area, and you ask questions like from where have you come, what is the purpose of your trip, why have you come to this area, and what is your final destination after parking your car here, where will you go finally. Okay, so you may say he is at his destination. No, he has parked his vehicle at a particular space. After coming out of that space, he may go to any of these facilities which are within his reach. For example, you go to city center. Now, within city center, your destination may be center point, or it may be the cinema hall, or it may be a restaurant. So that is your final destination. Okay, so you ask these things during a parking demand interview, so that you know why the driver has come, and from where he has come, and where will go, and so on. And demand, total demand of the parking area is calculated using this equation. So capital D is the demand, N is the number of vehicles which have been parking, and T is the duration for which these vehicles have parked. Okay, so some vehicles may have parked for 1 hour, some for 2 hours, some for 3 hours. So you multiply the number of vehicles which have parked for t hours. So t can be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, whatever number of hours you have. So for each number of hours you may have a different number of vehicles. Okay, maybe 2 vehicles for 3 hours, 5 vehicles for 4 hours, and so on. So you take the number of vehicles, multiply with their duration, and you add all of them, you will get the demand of the parking area. And then for finding out the parking supply, you will take the time for which one parking space is available, and then you multiply with the number of parking spaces, or just simply add the time for which a parking space is available for all the parking spaces. So for example, you have two parking spaces which are available for 6 hours. So parking supply will be 6 plus 6, 12 space hours. Okay. Similarly, you have two parking spaces available for 6 hours and one is available only for 4 hours. So parking supply will be 6 plus 6 plus 4. Okay. Normally, within a parking area, the time is same. Okay. The time for which the parking space is available is same. So you may have 10 parking spaces, all of them are available for 24 hours. So the parking supply will be 10 into 24. Okay, so in most of the cases you will just take the number of spaces and multiply with the time for which they are available, or the time for which you want them, because normally the time duration, the time availability is the same for all of them. Now we are multiplying with the factor f here. What do we mean by f? F means f is an efficiency factor. Okay, so what do we mean by f, or what do we mean by the efficiency? When it is the percentage of time in which the parking space is completely utilized or can be completely utilized. Okay, so it does not include the time when a car is actually entering the parking space or leaving the parking space, because in that time when a car is leaving it or entering it, it is not fully utilized by anybody. I'm entering it, but I'm not fully entered. I'm not fully parked. So I'm not utilizing it, and somebody else is not utilizing it as well. Similarly, when I'm coming out of that parking space, so the time which I'm taking in coming out, that is also unutilized time, because I'm not parked there, and somebody else can also not park there. So F is the efficiency factor, the amount of time in which the space can be actually utilized. So it is normally around 90% or so, and depends upon what type of parking area you have. In some parking areas you can easily come in and get out, so the efficiency factor for those parking areas will be higher, and vice versa. Okay, so for example, parallel parking is is difficult most of the times. You take more time to do that, so efficiency for parallel parking will be less, and so on. Let us look at this example. We are given with a parking study. So there were 8 parking spaces. Okay, and in those parking spaces, the data was collected for these 4 hours, 10, 11, 12, and 1 p.m. So at the start of each hour, the surveyors went to this parking area and they collected this data for each parking space. Now what are these numbers? These numbers are basically the registration plate numbers, license plate numbers of the vehicles who are parked in these spaces. Okay, so in a space 1 at 10 a.m. this vehicle was parked. At 11 a.m. this vehicle was parked. At 12 p.m. this vehicle was parked, and so on. Okay, and similarly for space 2, this was the data. For space 3, this is the data, and so on. Now you can see some of the numbers are repeated, like in the first row the numbers are repeated, in the second row the numbers are repeated, even in the third row the numbers are repeated. Here they are different for the first 2 columns, but they are repeated in the last 2 columns. So repeated number means the same vehicle was parked there. So the duration, parking duration for some vehicles was higher than the others. Okay, now your possible parking duration in this case can be, since you collected data for 4 hours, so the maximum parking duration can be 4 hours. Okay, and out of this, some vehicles are parked for 2 hours, some are parked for 1 hour, some are parked for 4 hours, some are parked for 3 hours. Okay, so you can collect how many vehicles were parked for 1 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours, and you can take the average. It will give you average parking duration. Okay, but what we have to calculate here is parking accumulation, parking turnover rate, demand and supply from the given data, and the efficiency factor can be taken as 85%. Okay, so there was 85% of the time when the parking duration can be fully utilized. Okay, so first of all, accumulation is for each time interval, or for each time at which you recorded the data. So the data was recorded for 10, 11, and then 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. So at 10 p.m. how many spaces were filled? Out of 18, all the 18 spaces are filled. You can see in all the 18 spaces there is a vehicle marked or recorded. Then for 11 a.m. same thing. Then for 12 p.m. you can see there are two spaces empty. Okay, so the number of occupied spaces are 16. So the accumulation for 12 p.m. is 16. Then at 1 p.m. there are 3, 4, and 5, 6, and 7 spaces which are empty. So the accumulation is 11. Okay, 11 vehicles have parked here. Okay, then you can count how many different license plate numbers you can see. Okay, so for example, there are this license plate number is recorded 4 times, so it's the same vehicle, right? So when I'm counting number of vehicles, meaning parking volume, I don't have to count it again and again. I've just counted once. So this is one vehicle, this is one vehicle, these two are one vehicle, this is another one, this is another one. Okay, so I will count how many different license plate numbers I have, and that will become my parking volume. So I counted that, and that came out to be 32. So there are 32 different license plate numbers recorded in this graph, which becomes my parking volume. Then how many parking spaces we have? We have 18 parking spaces. Now if you divide the parking volume or number of vehicles upon the number of parking spaces, you will get turnover rate. Okay, so turnover rate for this particular area is 1.78. So each space is utilized by 1.78 vehicles on average. Obviously you cannot break the vehicle just to fit it, it's just an average number. Then if you want to calculate demand, that demand will be, you will find out how many parking durations are possible. So you collected data for 4 hours, so the possible parking durations can be 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, and 4 hour, because for 4 hours the interval between them was 1 hour each. So you cannot have 4.5 hours or 3.5 hours. Okay, because I collected the data with an interval of 1 hour. Okay, so the parking duration can be 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, or 4 hours. So how many vehicles parked here for 1 hour? I will count again. How many license plate numbers were only observed once? So that was 14. Then how many license plate numbers were observed twice? So their parking duration becomes 2 hours. So those vehicles were 9. Similarly, 5 vehicles were observed for 3 hours and 4 vehicles were observed for 4 hours. You add all of them, you get the total demand in terms of space hours. So the parking space was utilized for 63 space hours. Now if you want average duration, so if you divide the 63 with the number of vehicles you have, okay, you will get average parking duration for each vehicle. So 63 divided by 32 will give you average parking duration. Then if you want supply, then we have 18 spaces. All spaces were available for the complete 4 hours, and the efficiency factor was given as 85%. So the parking supply which I got is 61.2 space hours. Okay, so I have 61.2 space hours of parking supply. This is another example related to demand and supply. So we have owner of a parking garage, and the garage is located in a CBD area. CBD means Central Business District, so basically a commercial area, and he has observed that he is not fulfilling 20% of the demand. The total demand which is coming to that area, 20% of them are going back because of not finding the space. So he did some survey and he found it out. And usually the high demand time is this one, 8 to 6. So this is basically 8 to 6 becomes 10 hours, right? 10 hours. So in these 10 hours, he is not fulfilling 20% of the total demand. And he found that he did a survey and he found that 60% of the people who are parking inside are commuters. Commuters means people who come here regularly. So these are the people who are coming for work here. So it's their workplace. They are working in a mall or shopping space or something like that, and they come here regularly. And since they are coming for work, they have to park for longer duration, which is 9 hours. And the remaining are shoppers, people who are coming for shopping. So then the remaining will be 40% obviously, and these people park for 2 hours, so they do shopping for 2 hours. Just imagine. Okay, 20% of people who cannot shop, oh sorry, who cannot park. Okay, so there were 20% who cannot park, and out of those 20%, 20% are those. So this is 20% of 20%. Okay, 20% of people of 20% who cannot park. So out of them, 20% are commuters. So the remaining will be 80%. So the 80% will be shoppers. Okay, and currently there is a spacing for 200 vehicles inside the parking area. So these 200 vehicles are basically 80% of the total people who want to come here, because we said 20% cannot park, right? So the 200 vehicles who are inside are basically 80% of the total. So now he wants to increase the spaces in his parking area so that he can accommodate these 20% people as well. The efficiency factor for this parking area is 0.9. Let's see how we can solve that. So the demand can be calculated as this equation, which is number of parking spaces and which the time for which these parking spaces are available. Okay. Now for the time being, we have 200 parking spaces. These parking spaces are used for 9 hours by people people who are commuters. Okay, and how many people are commuters? 60%. So 60% of the demand is comprising of commuters which park for 9 hours. So 0.6, because 60% are commuters, multiply by 200 because we have 200 parking spaces, multiply by 9 because they park for 9 hours. So 1080 space hours are used by commuters. Then shoppers are 40%. So out of 100, 60% are commuters, so the remaining will be 40% shoppers. They are parking in 200 spaces and they are parking for 2 hours. Okay, so 160 space hours are used by shoppers. So this is the existing demand, okay, or the demand which is inside the parking area. Now how much demand is outside, how much demand is turned away? So we said the 200 parking spaces are basically 80% of the total. So 200 divided by 0.8 will give you total. Out of this total, how many spaces I already have? 200. Okay, so the extra vehicles which are turned away are 50. Okay, total minus vehicles which are inside. So total is 200 upon 0.8, because 200 spaces 80% of the total, minus the 200 spaces which I already have. So they 50 vehicles are being turned away. Out of these 50 vehicles, 20% are commuters. So 0.2, then there are 50 vehicles, so 50, and they park for 9 hours, so multiply by 9. So 9 space hours are required for commuters. Then the remaining, out of 100, if 20 are commuters, then 80% will be shoppers. So shoppers out of 50, 80% out of 50, and they park for 2 hours. So 80 space hours are required for shoppers. So total space hours for demand is the existing demand plus the additional demand. You add all of them, you get 1410. How many space hours are we serving now? Only these. Okay, so 1080 plus 160, 1240. So out of 1410, we are only serving 1240 space hours. So we need to serve 170 space hours extra, okay, to meet the demand. So the supply, parking supply, the additional parking supply should be equal to 170, okay, and the efficiency factor is 0.9. So 170 spaces which I want, and these spaces should be available for 10 hours. How do I get 10 hours? Because I did the survey from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So these are 10 hours. So in all these 10 hours I need the spaces, right? So number of hours 10 multiply by the efficiency factor, which is 0.9. Okay, so n is the number of spaces, and these spaces should be available for 10 hours, and the efficiency factor is 0.9, and their product should be 170. So number of spaces comes out to be 18.89. Now obviously you cannot provide 18.89 spaces, you will provide 19 spaces, and if you take the whole number, you should provide 20 spaces, right? Now let us discuss geometric design of these parking spaces now, or parking facilities. So geometric design, as we discussed earlier, includes the finding out the dimensions of the parking spaces, and in case of parking areas, we have to find out the arrangement as well, how they should be arranged, okay, what should be the alignment and so on. Our purpose is to make sure that when people are going into the parking area and coming out of the parking area, they can safely do that, so they have enough space to do that, and their maneuvering is easy. Going into the parking area and coming out of the parking area is easy. It's not very close space, and the turning is easier, and you are providing enough radius and width and so on. And when you are doing that, you have to make sure that you are not restricting the flow of traffic which is happening on the travel lane. So you can see in the picture, these are the parking spaces, okay. So when somebody is coming out of the parking space, going into the parking space, ideally there should be enough space left for a vehicle to move in this lane, okay. So this is my travel lane. So when somebody is going in or coming out, ideally you should leave enough space so that this flow can happen without any restriction. Then we said earlier there can be on-street parking spaces and off-street parking spaces. So let us start with on-street parking spaces. So on-street parking spaces can be parallel to the curb, meaning parallel to the sidewalk or median or whatever, or they can be inclined. Their angle of inclination can range from 0 degree to 90 degree. 0 means parallel, and 90 means perpendicular, and between them you have other angles as well, like 45, 60 and so on. Sometimes you may have to provide parking spaces for trucks or buses. Then in that case you may have to change your design parameters, but in most of the conditions you will be designing for a car, so the dimensions which I will show you in the coming slides will be valid in most of the cases. So these are the parking dimensions according to the angle of the parking. So this is for 0 degree, then this one is for 30 degree, this one is for 45 degree, then 60, and then 90. For each case they have given me how much width I need, and the width of the parking space, you can see it is given as 22 feet, and the width of the vehicle itself, which is 18 feet. So you leave some extra space, okay. The actual space of the vehicle is less, and you leave some extra space because the driver has to come in and go out, and they have to open the door, and you have to leave some extra space between one vehicle and the other vehicle. So you will find in all the cases we are leaving some extra space, okay. Similarly, you have to leave some space along the curve as well as perpendicular to the curve as well. You can see the space required by the vehicle is 8 feet, and we are providing a space of 18 feet open area, Why these 10 feet? This 10 feet is for the vehicle to go out of the parking area or to come into the parking area. Okay, so you need these extra 10 feet, so when the vehicle is coming out or going in, the vehicle can do it within this 10 feet. Then for each case they have given me how can I calculate the number of parking spaces along the length. This length, this is L, this dimension is L. So if you have a 0-degree parking area, then L by 22, because each space is 22 feet. And if you have 30-degree parking, then it will be L minus 2.8 upon 17, because each space requires 17 feet. Okay, and then for 45 it's upon 12, 9.8, and then for 90 degrees 8.5. Now you can see that for inclined parking spaces I am subtracting something from the length. This is the last part of the length which is unutilized. You can see this part. So since you are making inclined parking, so usually we are left with some extra space on the side of the parking lane in which you cannot accommodate any vehicles. In 2.8 feet or 6.7 feet, you cannot accommodate any vehicle. So this space is wasted. So we subtract this space and then we calculate the number of parking spaces by dividing with the width. Now each time you increase the angle of inclination, you require less width along the parking space, so the number of parking spaces will increase, n will increase. So when you are going down with the angle of inclination is increasing, the spaces are the number of spaces are going up. Okay, so with 90-degree parking you will have the maximum number of spaces along the curve. Okay, and you can see but in each case when you increase the angle of inclination, the width is increased, the required width is increased. So you are requiring less length but you require more width. Okay, so you increase the angle of inclination, you will increase the number of spaces, but at the same time you will also require more width. So you can see for 90 degree I need the maximum amount of width. And usually you would see that parallel parking is not used in Bahrain. Then these are the parking dimensions for Bahrain. As I told you, we don't have 0-degree, so I have given the dimensions for 30 degrees, 35, 60, and the end you can see 90 degrees. For each case I have given the length required by the vehicle. Okay, so the length required by the vehicle is 5.6 meters. These dimensions are in meters, all dimensions are in meters. Then how much is the inclined width of the parking space, that is A. How much is the straight width of the parking space, that is C. And how much is the length of the parking space along the curb, that is B. So the average dimensions are given and they are in meters. So these are for standards for Bahrain. Now let us talk about off-street parking facilities. So in off-street parking you are given with the area and you are trying to accommodate as many parking spaces as possible within that area. And in doing that you have to design the complete layout of the parking area, like how many spaces will there be, how many parking aisles or parking lanes you are going to have, and how people will go from one lane to another lane, and what should be the orientation of that parking space, so that people can get into the parking space and go out of the parking space within one maneuver, meaning within one movement. Okay, don't make the parking spaces so congested and so difficult that people will take like 10 minutes to go and then come out. So that is the main consideration. And let me show you different layout options for surface parking lots. So these are different options for one aisle or one lane in a surface parking lot in an off-street parking area. So you will have like this one aisle, you will have multiple aisles alongside that. Okay, so this is just a configuration of one aisle or one lane. So aisle is basically one lane which you are giving for parking. Now so you can see they have given us the total width required for the aisle including parking on both sides. So since the area is in your is reserved for parking, so in each lane you can have parking on both sides. And then uh, you have the width for each space as well. Okay, and you have the width between the two spaces which you will require for coming out and going into the parking spaces. Now a good thing about these clear spaces, or what they are calling as clear aisle here, the good thing about them is you can vehicles from both sides can utilize this space. So you can see is 10 feet if you measure it from the edge of the parking space, and if you measure it from the uh, space of the vehicle, then it is 15 feet. In any case, the clear space is 10 feet for you. So both vehicles are utilizing this 10 feet space. How? Because both of them may not be using it at the same time. So that's a good thing about off-street parking spaces, where you can utilize a space in the middle as a clear space for both vehicles. But you can see when you increase the angle of inclination, the aisle space is also, the required aisle space is also increasing. Then we have a specific off-street parking layout design, which we call as a herringbone design. So herringbone design is made up of 45-degree parking spaces. Why 45-degree? Because 45-degree is the relatively easiest angle to park in, because you don't have to worry about straightening your vehicle. If you are doing it parallel parking, by the way, we don't do parallel parking in off-street parking areas. But anyways, if you are doing anything close to a parallel parking like 30 degrees, or if you are doing anything close to perpendicular parking like 90 and 60-degree, you may take more time to park. Okay, because you are trying to get uh, away from the natural angle of the vehicle coming into the parking space. But 45-degree is the natural angle. You are going at 90-degree, you just turn, you do half a turn and you are at 45 degrees. Another good thing about herringbone design is that there is no separation between the parking spaces which are on both sides. So you can see one parking space ends, and the parking space there for the other direction is ending at the same point. Okay, you can see it here. So this is one vehicle and this is another vehicle, and they are both like parking head to head without any separation. So in that case, you can overlap the parking from both directions. You can see the parking, this parking is overlapping with this one. Okay, similarly this one is overlapping with this one. So you are basically reducing the space requirements. When you have a separation, then you cannot have overlapping from both ends. So in that case, you have to uh, you are leaving some space. Okay, you are leaving some extra space for the other direction. So in case of herringbone design, the space is not wasted, and at the same time you are allowing the drivers to park at a very comfortable and easy angle. So uh, the total width required for one lane of parking is 45 feet in herringbone design, and from this width the clear aisle is 11 feet between the two parking spaces. So this is a practical example of herringbone design. You can see the overlapping here. So this car is overlapping with this car and so on, and there is no separation between these two vehicles. Okay, so this is a herringbone design. Then off-street parking facilities are sometimes made multi-levels. You have seen them in different malls like city center, Sif Mall. They have multi-level parking. Airports as well, they have multi-level parkings. So all levels of parking must be connected through some access ramps. Okay, it is important so that if you don't find parking space in one level, you can shift to the other level, whether higher or lower. Now there are some restrictions when you are providing these ramps. The restriction is that the gradient of the ramp should not be more than 1:10. So it's around 10%. So gradient of the ramp should be less than 10%. Then the minimum lane width is 2.7 meter, which is normal. We have discussed them in previous chapter as well, previous topic, that the minimum lane width is 2.7 meters. This is for a straight ramp, but if you are providing a curved ramp, like the ramp is making a curve and going upward, then since the driver is already making a curvature, so we try to reduce the gradient for him so that it becomes easier for him. Okay, so the maximum gradient is reduced to 1:12, which will be less than 10%. And the minimum radius is 21 meters, so we try to make the curve as wide as possible. And the super elevation should not be less than 0.15, which is 15%. Now this value is very high, but we can manage it because the speed is very low, and the minimum lane width is 4.8 meters, because the car will require a lot of space to make a turn in such a short space, so we try to provide more width. Let us look at an example. We have the parking area of a shopping center which has a dimension of 400 feet by 500 feet. We have to find out a suitable layout for achieving one of the following objectives. Okay, so you have to try each objective at a time. The first objective is design parking area so that we have maximum number of spaces accommodated within this 400 by 500 feet. Secondly, again provide maximum number of spaces, but also facilitate traffic circulation by providing a one-way flow on each side of the aisle. So these are two objectives and we have to fulfill them one by one. So if we are looking at the objective of maximizing the number of spaces, then we know from our layouts uh, that you can accommodate maximum number of spaces in a parking lane if you provide a 90-degree parking. Okay, we had the equation for that, this equation. Okay, so with 90-degree parking you need less width of the parking space, so number of parking spaces along the lane will increase. Okay, so 90-degree parking layout should be adopted for maximizing the number of spaces. Now let us calculate how many spaces are we actually providing if we go with this layout. So for off-street parking facilities, 90-degree layout has this has these dimensions. So one parking lane has 58 feet width. Okay, now this 58 feet can be along the 500 feet dimension, or it can be along the 400 feet dimension. Okay, so I should arrange it in a way that maximizes the number of spaces. Let's say I am making this dimension as 500 feet, and then this one is 400 feet. Okay, so in this dimension, in this 400 feet, I will have a number of aisles. Okay, It will not be one aisle. One aisle only requires 58 feet. So there will be number of aisles. So first of all, let us calculate how many aisles I can have, how many lanes I can have if I provide width along the 400 feet dimension. So 400 upon 58, the width required for one lane. So it will give you 6 point something aisles. So obviously we cannot provide 6 point something. The whole number of aisles will be, or whole number of parking lanes will be 6. Similarly, uh, how many spaces we will have in one row of parking? So as we said, this dimension is 500 feet. So 500 becomes my length minus 2 into 25. Now why we are doing 2 into 25? I'm allowing to leave 25 feet on both sides. 25 feet will be left here and 25 feet will be left here. Why? To circulate from one row of parking to another row of parking. Okay, so this is for circulation of vehicle between the aisles. Okay, so I have to leave some space on both sides of the parking row so that vehicles who cannot find the space in one row can shift to the other row. Okay, from this end or the other end. So they can enter from one end and they can exit from the other end. So 500 minus 2 into 25, which I am leaving, so there are no parking spaces in these 25 feet on both sides. So whatever is remaining, you divide by 8.5, which is the width required for 190-degree parking space. So you will get again 52 point something spaces. So I round it to 52. So how many parking spaces you will have? 52 into 2 into 6. Okay, 52 number of spaces on two sides in 6 rows. Okay, we calculate 6 rows. So it gives me 624 spaces. Okay, now let us see if I reverse the dimension, what will happen. So if I make this as 400 and this one as 500, then what will happen? So now I will calculate number of rows by dividing 558. I will get 8.6. So again I will take 8, then 400 minus 2 into 25 for circulation on both sides. So upon 8.5, which is the width of the parking space, so you get around 41 spaces in one side of one row. So total number of spaces will be 41. Number of spaces on one side into 2 for two sides into 8, which is the number of aisles. So you get 656 parking spaces. So having parking rows or putting the width of the parking rows along 500 feet gives me more spaces than the other way around. So I will go with this combination. Now let us discuss the case where you are maximizing the number of spaces, but at the same time you are providing an easy access and a convenient flow of traffic. So in that case, the best design we can have is the herringbone design. So you'll go with the herringbone design. So one aisle will require 45 feet of space, and then one 45-degree space requires a width of 12 feet. So I'll first calculate the number of aisles. I have seen in the previous example that if you provide the width of the aisle along 500 feet dimension, then it will give you more spaces. So this dimension is taken as 500 feet. Okay, so how many parking rows you can have or parking lanes you can have? 500 upon 45 gives you approximately 11 parking lanes. Then how many spaces you can have in each lane? The length will be 400 feet minus 2 into 25 for circulation traffic from both sides, and upon 12, which is the width required for 45-degree angle parking. So you have 29 spaces in each row, and then total number of spaces will be the number of spaces which you have in one row multiplied by the both sides 2 and multiplied by the number of travel lanes or parking lanes, So you get 638 spaces within this area if you are providing a herringbone design, which is not very low as compared to the previous case of 90°. It was around 656 spaces. So we are not losing many spaces by improving the flow and making the parking easier for the drivers.